Howdy guys, it's Commander Clyde, and welcome to a different sort of video. I felt like talking about some of the changes on the public test server. So as most of you should be aware, the public test server for Smite is a separate Smite client, and it's where they test all the stuff before it's released into the live game. And well, they got the PTS up for next season, so a lot of things changed. I'm obviously not going to go over the full notes for the whole season 4 patch because we would be here for a long time, probably at least an hour talking about that. So what we're going to do instead is talk about the current hotfix they've put in for for a few minor changes of things that were either under or overperforming. And then I might talk about a few of the items and things they put in. Just a few of them, the ones that are more broken and overstated, etc., than they need to be, and just all that. So yeah. Anyway, let's go to it. First thing is here. So for the Conquest K mode, the start timer, the game now starts at -1 minute instead of -130. Change for this is too much time spent doing nothing before anything spawns, and they want to level that out a little bit, meaning still spawn at 0. Jungle camps at 30 seconds. And that is bad. Still, the jungle camp spawns need to be reverted to 10 seconds. The reason being that you have nothing to do for 30 seconds. There's no jungle camps. All you do is go to lane, wait for the minions to meet up. And in the solo lane side, it takes 28 seconds for the minions to meet in lane. So all you can do is go clear the wave. Now if you go try and take a buff, guess what? Your opponent's going to clear the wave before you and get free minion pressure. And then start taking the jungle camps because you have to clear your minions, and then you'll lose experience from the minions, blah blah blah. It's terrible. Also, having them spawn in 30 seconds takes away the invade meta, so you can't invade your opponent because that would be negative for you, because then you lose the minion wave and potentially other buff camps afterward, trying to clear, because you had to go over and clear your own minion wave because you did not clear it on the initial start. That's no good. It takes away all experimentation and pre-game strategy it's basically whoever clears the lane faster, and that's it. You clear your lane fast, you get the jungle camp first, which takes no thought, and it's boring. Moving on to the jungle camps themselves. Jungle mob health scaling over time decrease from their 1.85 multiplier to 1.75. They're just trying to balance the health of the camps over time a little bit, whatever. And they say throughout the first season of Smite there was an unintended effect where jungle camps would scale their health over time differently depending on if they were dead or not. This has been fixed, and a new constant health scaling factor has been applied. Feedback and statistics showed this made the jungle monster slightly more tanky than usual, so it's being toned down. Elder Elemental. This jungle monster has the stats, rewards, and rules as a Cyclops buff monster, so Voxer will treat it as such, and it now must be at 33% health for Voxer to eat it. Ooh, which is inaccurate because the lease range was different. I believe it probably did different damage, had a different amount of health. Pretty sure it gave a different amount of gold. So, God changes. Hercules. We initially made a change to mitigate wounds to allow players to heal quickly without relying on enemies, yet still give Hercules a bonus for using it in combat. With this change, we removed the aspect of this skill that many players found unique. To remedy this, we are bringing back some of his old strength while encouraging players to be more aggressive during its activation. The burst heal immediately after, as opposed to a 10-second heal over time, and the bonus protections should greatly facilitate this. Now, the first problem with the change is they shouldn't have changed anything initially about him at all, because the returning health back based on the damage you took was a very interesting thing, and it acted well with his existing passive, which is fine. This version of the change is much better, but it would have been nice if it had been like this to begin with, instead of them backtracking after feedback, which is true. Like, if they knew the change removed the aspect of a skill that players found unique, why did they remove it in the first place with the initial Season 4 PTS if it was unique? It doesn't make sense. But Mitigate Wounds becomes a lot more interesting ability because of the burst heal initially, which you say 60 to 220. He gets protections 10 to 50, scaling up, through the 5 ranks of the ability. And then will instantly heal back. That's different also, because it used to be over time he would gain it back after that duration of the ability. So he passes 4 seconds, damage he took steadily regenerates over time. It says here it will just instantly heal back. This can make him very dangerous in team fights because he'll get low, and then that 4 seconds will wear off, and then he gets a bunch of health. Imagine if you had Bracer of Undoing. It would be crazy. Anyway, so that's fine though. The logic is strange. Janus has remained largely unchanged for the last few years. He has been a popular pick to many players, but at all levels of non-competitive play, he has struggled statistically, only becoming a strong pick at the absolute highest level of play. We have long since been okay with this, understanding he's a challenging on with a high skill ceiling. Recently, his strength at the highest level through item and meta shifts has become a bit too strong compared to his previous standing, so we are changing through space and time to match our previous statement about the cooldown of global mobility ultimates. We expect this to bring him even lower at all other levels of play, and we will be looking at ways to bridge the large gap between these levels of play while keeping his skill cap high that people have come to love. Now, is he a hard god to play? Yes. Once you learn how to play him, he's completely broken though. And that is true for not just the highest level of play, that's true for competitive, really. And a lot of players do play ranked. So it's not like there's only a small number of players that can play him well. The reason why he doesn't get played in casuals is because he is hard to use, yes. And aim, and people don't understand how strong he is, which is fine. The only problem is you can't change a god based on one portion of the game. It doesn't work because you affect the other portion of the game in an unbalanced manner because your change is not based on that. I think changes should be on competitive level of play, and then new players can learn how to use gods correctly. It's not impossible. Just making it easier for people though is not the right way. I mean, people gotta learn how to play. But anyway, that's not a big deal. Well, that is true. He has been a broken god for 2 years in competitive play, and he has been changed very little in that amount of time, and that's completely ridiculous when, with the same rationale, they changed they increased cooldown on Nuwa's ultimate because it was a global. They increased it on Apollo's. They increased it on Athena's. They didn't touch through space and time. If you guys had this previous statement about the cooldown of global mobility ultimates, which they did like early into season 3, Why was Janice's cooldown on his ultimate not changed until now? It's the only problem. It's a good change that needed to occur, but where have they been for all that time? Anyway, Susanoo. Susanoo has been struggling, seeing very little play, especially at the competitive level. We aim to improve him through some additional damage, but received a significant amount of pro feedback that a level 5 Susanoo will be too strong with those changes. As a result, we are scaling the bonus damage on his ultimate per level to help his positioning, but keep him here. Decrease bonus damage from full charge of 100 at all ranks to 40, scaling to 100. Which is correct. He can be a very strong god if his damage is not balanced correctly. Giving him too much damage lets him 1-0 people. And that is not what an assassin, like, at that stage of the game should be able to do. It's a little broken. Which is what happened to him on full release, and somehow, even though a lot of pro feedback said he would be too strong back when he was initially released, he was released completely broken and too strong. And then the story was he got nerfed to the point where he was almost unplayable. They brought him back a little bit. Then they brought him back up. PTS changes brought him back up more. Brings him back down. Whatever. I think it's a fine change. But they have been inconsistent with Susanoo. In terms of their logic, Hand of the Gods, now damages jungle bosses for the same amount as other minions. I don't know why it wasn't. Sunder saw a lot of use on PTS, which is awesome, but the burst potential provided was too high given the cost you pay to receive it. We are toning it down. We are toning down the base form and upgrades for Sunder in different ways to improve its counterplay, decrease debuff amount from 30% damage taken to 15% increased damage taken. Remember that is on the target it is used on. And they cut it in half, which is probably, I guess it needed to be lowered, but cutting it in half is probably too much. And that'll hurt the item quite a bit. Decreased damage dealt from 60 plus 20 per level when it's upgraded. Wait, I'd have to double check that. To 40 plus 14 per level. And decrease the cooldown by 10 seconds to reflect those nerfs. It's probably too strong of a nerf, but it had to be nerfed because it was far too strong. Anyway, continuing, fix words. Rallying ritual, fix an issue where this ritual could be interrupted if the destination god was damaged or CC'd. Now should only be interrupted if the god using it is CC'd. Okay, that's interesting. Whatever. Wind Demon. The added attack speed to this entire tree has had a great effect on hunter builds and diversifying crit items. Why? However, it resulted in Wind Demon becoming a bit too strong, so we're seeing a power reduction. So, first of all, Wind Demon was already being used as a crit item in builds. I hardly saw a single hunter player at Worlds not build it. So they were already building it already. So what did they do? Add attack speed to it and make it even better. Because somehow hunter builds weren't diversified and people weren't using it first? That logic is just foreign to me. That does not make sense. Anyway, the added attack speed to this entire tree has had a great effect on hunter builds. Oh, it says the same thing. Okay, so they decreased the physical power, even though they said the attack speed resulted in it becoming too strong. They toned down the power instead of taking off the stat that made it too strong in its current form. Why? That doesn't really fix the problem with it that much. It's still too strong. So, woo. They should have taken the attack speed off, I think. Because it already had a passive that provided you that if you crit. Granted, it was based on RNG, but passive still gave you attack speed without the item needing to have it. Continuing. Soul Eater is a clear example of trading raw power for sustain, and we enjoyed seeing where this item was used, the 3% heal was giving players a bit too much overall, so we were bringing it to a better spot at 2%. Decreased passive heal, which, hooray, but there's only certain gods that works on. It's not great for hunters anymore. It never was in Conquest, really. It was better in Duel, because to just get that big pop of health when you're in trouble is really good in that sense. And in a tech speed, well, this version of it's not very good though anyway, but this just makes it not very, even less good. I don't think people are really going to get it, to be honest. I mean, there's a couple of gods that work. Gods with cleaves in their auto tech chain work really well with this item, specifically. It does give health, so it's a little bit of tankiness. So there's a couple of warriors that benefit from the item, but very few gods actually see a benefit from it, because you're sacrificing other stats that are necessary. Talisman of the Relentless. This item was meant to serve as an alternative to Magi's Blessing that triggered in a new way. Unfortunately, it was confusing and it was hard to use effectively, so we're removing it for now as I was investigating other ideas for items. Move from the game. Now, the item had something to do with, if you were hit with a knockup, that was the one, if you were hit with crowd control, you became crowd control immune for 1 second when it occurred. The effect lasted for, it reoccurred every 90 seconds. It already wasn't as good as Magi's Blessing. Don't think, but I mean, the way you use it was not hard. It wasn't confusing. You know what? Okay, let's look at the item in the PTS real quick, and I will show you guys what I mean. Okay, it occurs to me, they said they just removed it. I'm intelligent. Okay, let me get a old patch note, and I will find it. Okay, we're back. Found it. Talisman of the Relentless. Here's what the item did. Was cost 2250, 50 magic protect, 200 health, 20% crowd control reduction. Every time you're hit by a hard crowd control from an enemy god, you become more relentless, gaining stacks. If you have 3 stacks, the next hard CC ability you are hit will make you CC immune for 1 second. It can only occur every 90 seconds. I don't think it said anything about Magi's Blessing, the cost changed, but it's a cheaper item. I believe its CC immunity occurs more often. You also don't need the stacks. Basically, it's a worse version of Magi's Blessing. The problem was it wasn't hard to use. The problem is it wasn't as good of an item. Granted, the 200 health and 20% crowd control reduction are good. That still doesn't make it a better item. Because, well, it only gives you magical protection, which is not as good, obviously. Now, actually, let us compare this to Magi's Blessing. Okay, well, back in the God Builder here. See it? 15 physical magic protection. Protection's not as good. Gives you more health. Absorbs a single hard crowd control effect or root once every 70 seconds. And this card's the owner also receives 1 second of crowd control immunity. So, it also gives you immunity to an extra effect, a root. Remember, the talisman is only hard crowd control. It has a 70-second cooldown on the effect, and it costs 200 gold less. Why did Talisman of the Relentless exist? That's the only point I'm making. But again, it wasn't hard to use, it was just a worse version of this. Anyway, back to the notes. Okay, back to the hotfixes. Whoopsie. Here we are. Rage. Rage was seeing very little play in Season 3 and was given a new passive in position for Season 4. We received lots of feedback and evidence from testing that showed the new Rage needed more power. But you didn't have power. Now, you decreased the cost by 400 and increased the duration of the Rage buff. Now, You could have decreased the cost, you could have increased the duration of the buff, or, well, you could have increased the power. They didn't. But instead, they do both and make it a lot stronger. There's no reason to jump to that extreme. So, yeah, people will use it now. So, War Flag, movement, speed, and attack speed bonuses from this now affect all allies within range since it's a starter item, by the way. So, that's good. Remove the pin from the tier 2 of Fatalis. Well, actually, Fatalis is the tier 2. So, move the pin. Ace of Fatalis, smooth at the cost. Jones, right? Smooth at the cost. So it's not weird. Ethereal Staff serves as a nice alternative to Soul Reaver, providing lower cooldown, non-true damage at 3 seconds. However, Ethereal Staff overshadowed Soul Reaver, so we are limiting how often Ethereal Staff can proc to 10 seconds. And remember, this occurs for any ability used. Now, let's talk about this for a second. Increasing the cooldown is great because it was too strong. But allow me to direct your attention to the item. Okay, and here we are. So let's look at the stats. 90 magic power, 200 health, 20% crowd control reduction, and then the aforementioned passive, which is deals 5% of your opponent's max health every 10 seconds. So there's that. What about Soul Reaver, you might be asking? Well, let's look. 100 power, 300 mana, 10% of their maximum health. And it occurs every 40 seconds. Now let's talk about this. Yes, you get 10 more power, and yes, you get mana, which you do not have with this. But the effect is 5% health. So you're getting the same benefit as Soul Reaver in half the time. And if you expand that out to the 40 seconds, you're doing 20% of their max health versus 10%. Which item is better? This one. It's not an alternative to Soul Reaver. It is the better item. Also, the defensive stats end up being more valuable than the mana. Sacrificing 10 power for that is not a huge deal at all. So this item is too strong because there's nothing to think about. It's just better. Right. Okay. Soul Reaver. Updated it. Okay, yeah, it deals true damage. Heartseeker fishing issue where stats were being consumed on minion hits. That is incorrect. It should only consume on enemy god's hit. Silver Branch Bow. Increased magical power debuff from 10 to 15. Why have they done this? Because magical power tends to be higher than physical power, so they needed to change the debuff to match that idea. So now the total debuff after 3 autos will be 45 power, which is comparable to the 30 that Iqbal will take off. It's still a really strong item, and it probably needs to be toned down in other ways, but that change should have happened because that makes a lot more sense. Rangers Mask is a very aggressive item, rewarding players for prioritizing fights and ganking over farming. Getting a benefit from this item took a bit too long to acquire in most cases, so we are making the first threshold easier to hit. Decrease the number of stacks required for the first buff from 8 to 6. Fix the buff where you can sell and maintain the buff from this item. Now, this change doesn't matter because this item isn't very good. And allow me to explain that. Alright, let's look at this. Rangda's Mask, also 5 MP5. Important to point out. Each time you get an assist, you gain a stack or 2 for a kill. At 6 stacks, this item provides 7% movement speed and 10% cooldown reduction. At 16 stacks, this item provides 15 penetration, 10% movement speed, 10%, 15% cooldown reduction. The stats seem good, but the problem is early game. You need to get those 6 stacks, which means you either need 6 assists, 3 kills, or some combination of the 2. Which, unless you're a good jungler for that, it's going to take you a while to get that benefit. Let me point out, there's few guns that benefit from this. While the CTR is good, movement speed, I mean, it doesn't help a lot of them. Mercury can see some kind of benefit from it, but it's not significant enough. By the time the stacks are useful, you're going to have sold this item for something better. Alright. Gladiator Shield. Gladiator Shield has served as a strong bridge item, especially for warriors in the soul lane. We are lowering some of its physical power provided by this item to not only highlight this as a defensive bridge choice, but balance out its overall strength. Decrease physical power from 25 to 15. They want to make it look like a bridge defensive item, which the item is a bit overstated because previously it's 25 power, 40 physical protection, and 10% CDR, I believe. Passive was gained 3% of your health back for hitting an ability, I believe. So yeah, it was a bit strong because of the passive and stuff. But now it makes it less useful, kind of. Yeah, still a bridge choice. If you want it, go ahead. It's not terrible, but I would skip it. Sands of Time. Sands of Time passive is seeing an increase in the amount of mana restored to give mages a stronger mana regen starter item. Increased bonus MP5 for 10% of missing mana from 1 to 1.5. This item is too strong. It has 20 power. As MP5 has that passive, and it also gives you 10% CDR. Why is that allowed? You just get 10% CDR right away. You know, and you guys might know from the previous video, testing Xinjiang Soul Lane, I went with that as a starter item, and it was way too strong. I had too much mana, a lot of mana sustain, and 10% cooldown just immediately. Like, okay, just give me a free advantage over my opponent, because they won't have 10 CDR. They won't have mana sustain like that. That's... So, yeah. But whatever. It is a starter item. You'll sell it eventually, but I still think it's too strong. Special Armor. Special Armor's Fear Effect gives players a strong crowd control effect that can disrupt enemy combos at 60 seconds. This power is coming up too often, so we're increasing the internal cooldown for this item. Doesn't matter. Get hit at range, it's down for 90 seconds. This made this item a lot worse. I don't think people were using it much anyway. Whatever. Pythagorum's Piece. Let me say the whole thing. The new power Pythagorum's Piece, to provide a strong effect to your team, no matter the composition is great, but the raw power previously provided is now a bit too high. We made a few adjustments to the stats. It provides to bring it more toward being a support choice by decreasing stats across the board, which doesn't matter much because the item is still significantly strong. It's way too strong still because you buff everybody around you, which the total net benefit of it becomes much greater than any of the other lifesteal items. So it doesn't matter. People will still get it as mages. And if it supports, it could actually be more effective on supports because they're going to be near a teammate more often probably than any other role. Why is that item allowed to exist at the same price as Bancroft's Talon? I don't know. You tell me. Because think about the aura. If it's on all your teammates at once, that's a lot of power and lifesteal to just have spread around the map. To just have in your team. It's crazy. So they decrease the cost of Bancroft's Talon to make it a more desirable choice over that. They increase its magical lifesteal, which, because net benefit is lower, still not as good of an item in Conquest as Pythags. Spear of Desolation, increased cost, increased magical power, increased magical penetration. Passive earning a kill or assist subtracts 1 second from all abilities currently on cooldown. Passive is terrible. Anyway, let me explain. After a week of PTS testing, this item is shown to not be at a relevant power level compared to other magical power and penetration items. It is seeing some stat increases in a new passive to preserve more of the Spirit of Season 3 Spirit of Desolation. Why'd you increase the cost, though, if you wanted it to be more picked up more often? So these changes do not help much. You're still not going to buy it over the other pen items. Let me show you. Alright, here's the pen tree. Tree of Desolation, 2,800 gold. Let's see. Obsidian Shard, 2,300 is 500 less, and I get 33% magic penetration, which laid against tankier targets is better than 20 flat. Cooldown reduction doesn't really make it any better. Granted, it's 20 less magical power, but that's not bad of a trade-off for getting that amount of pen. Or alternatively, we get Spear of the Magus, which is 2050. It's 750 gold less, 50 power, 15 flat pen, and your abilities reduce your target's magical protection by 10 for 5 seconds for 3 stacks of 30, which maxes out the flat pen. I believe 45 is the cap on that. So, why would I not buy that too? Isn't that not better? Or you get the same power, 5 less pen, but enemies hit by your abilities have 40% reduced healing, which is better. Changes don't matter, no one's going to buy this item. Okay, Stone of Gaia. Stone of Gaia in Season 4 is intended to be a situational counter item against knockup reliant gods, and new passive successfully achieved this but limited the way players could heal from the item. Stone of Gaia is being changed to always heal as it did before, but then also have an additional application new passive. Passive 10% mana health and mana heal on knockup has been removed. Added passive regenerates 2% of your max health every 5 like it used to. But it's still pretty strong. All it gives you the counter to knockups, like it's on 400 health and other things. So let's take a look at it. Alright. Here we are. 2,000 gold, 400 health, 25 HP5, 15 MP5. If you are hit by a knockup or knockback, you are instead enveloped by the earth, becoming CC immune for 1 second, can only occur once every 90 seconds. Also regenerates 2% of your max health. This is a very strong item. Knockback, strongest form of CC, gives you a counter to it. You get 400 health and a bunch of regen, and it's 2,000 gold. Wow, isn't that awesome? So basically the item is too strong. But some people have also suggested, can't they just have crowd control reduction decrease the height you are knocked up from a knockup? My question to that is, is that actually possible for them to pull off with programming? Can you make it the knockups? Can you decrease the height of a knockup based on crowd control reduction? I don't know. That may be why that doesn't exist. Is because they can't actually do it. But who knows? Soulstone. As part of our starter item changes, Soulstone is being focused into more of a direct power item. Its updated passive affects multiple abilities, allowing for a large power spike, but it must sacrifice something for this. No longer provides mana when consuming stacks. Why? The item was good with that, and now you took the interesting thing away from it. Doesn't regen your mana. How does that matter? That means you'll have less mana to actually consume the stats. So they're like slowing it down and nerfing it probably a little too much. But let's look at it anyway. Okay. 20 power, 100 mana, gain 1 stack every time you hit an enemy with base attack. If you have 5 stacks, the next time you deal damage with an ability, the stacks are consumed with that ability, and any abilities used in the next 3 seconds will deal bonus damage equal to having plus 40 magical power for those abilities, which is pretty strong. But with the mana regen being taken off, does it really matter? It's made the item less effective. So, I mean, is it a good change? Not really. Anyway. Right. Swift Wing. Swift Wing's passive effect will now fade when entering combat. And it didn't before, and I don't know why. That seems kind of broken. But anyway, good change, needed to be fixed. To do. These are things on our list that get done, but we're not available at this point in PTS. Why? Why is that our to-do list? Explain to me. And yes, I realize this notes analysis is similar to some other people who have done this, but there's good reason for that, because those analyses are correct. I mean, like, it all makes sense if you look at it. Those are the conclusions one would come to if they actually did take the time to look at these things. Also, to-do list. Reevaluate which items are banned in which game mode. Why does anyone care about that? Only game mode that really affects is Assault. And, like, ooh, Assault's such a big deal. Like, Conquest isn't. Okay. Make additional adjustments to Scotty. What needs to be changed? If it's about the skin, okay. If it's about her and her abilities, why? Would it... Also, new Conquest jungle buff being updated in color and name. Because, oh, the buff that was the same color hasn't been in the game for a long time, so we need to make sure people know the difference, even though we've all forgotten about the attack speed buff. Whatever.